Welcome back to the channel, and welcome back to the vlog. Another beautiful morning in North Carolina. 73 degrees and sunny. September is absolutely gorgeous in Charlotte. Good morning, guys. Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to the vlog. So I wanted to make a video talking about F30s and whether or not it should be your first vehicle. Should you buy an F30 for your first car? And to be honest with you, I don't think it's a terrible decision, but I don't think it's the best decision. So we'll get into why I think that. Coffee acquired. Before we do anything, we need a car wash real quick. This thing's pretty filthy, man. Darker cars just tend to get dirty so much easier. So I'm just gonna do a quick spray off. That's the beauty about the ceramic coating. You just like to spray it off, throw some soap on it, some water, and we'll be good. But John, the car's soaking wet, and you don't have any towels. How are you gonna dry it? That's how. Drive it. What I usually do is I just spray it off at the car wash, and then I head home and I do the final touches, which includes like the actual drying with air dry. I just try to not like touch the car as much as possible. I prefer to just air dry it with an actual air blower. I'm not doing that today, but usually if I am washing the car, I spray it off at the actual booth, and then I go home and I finish it up there. Ooh! I mean, you gotta do this. If you love your car, you can't go past a nice window with a mirror reflection and check it out. Am I right? At the old stomping grounds. Way too hot for that. All right, so here are my thoughts about owning an F30 for your first car. I have to assume that you're either like 16, 17, 18, 19, somewhere in there years old, depending on how fortunate you are to have a car at a younger age. Let's talk about the value of these cars. So this is a 328. F30 328 2013. My car is currently valued somewhere around $14,000. So if we think I bought this car 4 or 5 years ago for $24,000, so it's depreciated quite a bit in value, but that's also why there are so many F30 owners out there, because they're becoming very affordable. So the other talking points are, is this car reliable? When do you have to start to worry? This car currently has 70,000 miles, and I can only speak from experience. I take pretty good care of this car, I like to think. I'm ahead of maintenance all the time. I do all the usual oil changes, the belts that need to be replaced, brakes, all that good stuff. I haven't had any major issues with the car, but I also don't beat the living daylights out of the car. I drive spirited every now and then, just like you should if you are a car enthusiast, but I do not beat on the car. I'm not out there racing it every single day. I'm not out there doing burnouts every single day. The car is rather well maintained. So this car, my car in particular, has held up really well. It's super reliable, but I also take really good care of it. Now let's talk about my experience with some of the other people I know who own F30s. They have had nightmares. I've heard of engines blowing, timing chains going, axles ripping out, thermostats, radiator, like so many different things can go wrong with these cars. And if that does happen, it is not cheap to fix it because it is a BMW. So while some people might be under the assumption that they're getting a car for very cheap, that it's going to be a cheap car, that is not the case because you're still buying a BMW and the parts for this car are not cheap at all. If I were to give you my honest advice and you are 16, 17, 18 years old and you are getting your first car, I do not think that you should own this car. Here's why. I'm purely basing this opinion off of my experience. When I was 16, 17 years old, my first car was an Acura. Why was it an Acura? Because it's cheap to maintain, super reliable, and extremely affordable right out of the gate. My first car was somewhere around $11,000 or $12,000. It was used, it was an Acura Integra, but it was extremely reliable. Never had issues with it. Super cheap oil changes. All you had to do with that car were routine oil changes and you're good. You never have to worry about anything. That car lasted me for a very long time. And it was very stress-free, easy to maintain. I think a car like a BMW is something that people should work up towards. I feel like an F30 would be a better option for your second car once you have your finances figured out. Now again, you guys, I'm just basing this off of my experience and how my life has worked out. I didn't have a lot of money when I was 16, 17, 18 years old, all the way up through like the mids of my 20s. Like I was working my ass off and I never made a lot of money. So having a nicer car was completely out of the question because I had to work so much just to afford the simple lifestyle that I had, which was my Acura, my apartment, school, things like that. So this video is really interesting because this all depends on your lifestyle, your money situation, your finances, how old you are, do you have school loans, like your debt. All of these things will play a role into whether or not like a BMW should be your first car. In my honest opinion, I don't think that an F30 BMW should be your first car, but I also don't think a BMW in general should be your first car. When I was 14, 15 years old, I remember begging and begging my parents to let me get an E30 BMW for my first car. I wanted an older 80s E30 325i BMW. I wanted that car so bad and there was no way they were gonna let me have it. And I couldn't for the life of me understand why. I was like, it's a cheap car. I can buy this car for like 6, 7 grand. Like, what do you mean? Like, why can't I have it? And as you grow older, you begin to understand logic and reason. And I quickly came to find out that those cars, I would spend more time working on it, fixing it, and making it run and making it reliable than actually using the car for what it was intended for, commuting, A to B, getting to school, getting to work. Whereas if you're that young, you really don't have that much money. If something goes wrong on a car like this or an E30, like, you're kind of out of commission for a minute until you can afford those parts. Not that the E30 parts are super expensive, but it was still a BMW and it was older and it wasn't as reliable as, say, a newer Acura Integra or a Honda Civic. For the same amount of money, you could get a slightly used Honda Civic or Acura Integra that you could just drive into the ground and nothing was gonna go wrong with it because it was just a Honda, man. That's how they ran. They just ran like that. They ran so well. So there are gonna be a lot of opinions and a lot of viewpoints on this subject matter, and that's okay, but I think a lot of this boils down to where are you at in life? What is your situation? Everyone grows up differently. Some people are more fortunate than others. Some people have parents that pay for things. Some people work hard for their money, but they're making good money when they're young. It all depends on what you guys can afford. But if you're just gonna go finance the crap out of a car like this and all you can afford are the car payments, stop right there. Because if anything goes wrong, you're not gonna be able to afford it. And then you're really screwed. You have this brand new car that you just went into debt to get and something goes wrong with it. You can't afford the parts. It's just sitting there. You're just shelling out money. So maybe this is a little bit of life advice, finance advice, car buying advice. I just think for your first car, maybe an F30 isn't the right one for everybody. This is at the 70,000 mile mark, and I have to assume that some things, smaller things, are going to end up popping up. I have no idea what they are. We're just gonna roll with it. I'm gonna tell you guys what happens as it happens. I'll be completely upfront and honest with you when things do happen to the car. I'm 70,000 miles in. I bought this car at 24,000 miles. I've had 0 major issues. It's been a really, really great commuter. It's been rather heavily modified. It's nothing too crazy, but all the bolt-ons and tunes. But I'm still really enjoying this car, and at 70,000 miles, it's showing 0 issues. So another part of this conversation is that you need to find yourself a reputable shop that isn't going to screw you over when it comes to pricing or doing the actual labor on your car. It's really, really important to establish a relationship with this shop. Keep going to them, show them that you're loyal, and they will take care of you. You just have to have a great relationship with them. And do your research where you live. Talk to people in the area. Make sure you look at the reviews. Go online, check out their social media. How do they present themselves? These things all matter. And if it's generally good across the board, you're gonna be okay. Just go to them and start building that relationship so you can have a good shop in your back pocket to use anytime you need maintenance done. Because when it does come down to it, at some point, you will need a shop. whether it's oil changes or springs or a thermostat or radio, I mean, whatever it might be, you're gonna want a shop that's gonna work on it and not overkill you with labor and parts. So we can talk real quick about the things that I've actually replaced on this car this far. At 50,000 miles, I did the spark plugs and we did the serpentine belt. Both of those are recommended at 50,000 miles. So if you guys are in that neighborhood, go ahead and do it. I think the serpentine belt was more like 60,000, but either way, we went ahead and handled that. It was showing a little bit of fraying, which is a telltale sign that it's probably time to change out that serpentine belt. Everything else on this car, honestly, mechanically, is fantastic. There's no leaking, there's no strange boost issues, there's no pipes that are cracked. And then in addition to that, obviously you have your brakes that you're gonna have to inevitably replace. That's just part of maintaining a car. I actually just redid mine. We went with the sequence brakes, the rotors and ceramic pads. Absolutely love them. So these are normal things. Obviously your oil changes. You guys make sure you're on top of your oil changes. It's like the most basic part about owning a new car or owning a used car, any car in general. So in addition to the oil, you have other fluids, right? Coolant, trans, brake, and you need to make sure that they get flushed and replaced on time. Your shop should be able to tell you when you need those things done. It's important, like I said, to have a relationship with a shop that you trust, that knows what they're doing. So yeah, you guys, all the basic stuff, all of the basic stuff, brakes, fluids, oil changes, belts, spark plugs, these are the things that you are definitely going to be running into regardless. It doesn't matter how old the car is or what the car is. Those are things that are going to have to be worked on the car no matter what. So how much do these cars cost? Right now, these cars are going for like $13, $10 to $14, $15. I've seen them kind of all over the place. This is a 328, so it's a little bit cheaper than like a 335. This also was a sport line, not an M Sport, which makes it even cheaper. So when I bought my car, it had 24,000 miles on it, and I bought it for $24,000. And I also financed it, so my payments were about $400 a month, which is actually okay, that's fine. For me, in my position where I was at in life, totally affordable, I could handle it. However, when I was 16, 17, there's no way I was making a car payment for $400 a month. There's no possible way that I could afford that when I was 16. For someone's first car, which I'm assuming 16 to 17, 18, 19 years old, it's probably not the best car, the best first car for you. I would go for something that's a little more reliable, cheap, easy, like a Honda or an Acura. So I also see people commenting on my modification videos complaining about the prices of some of the mods. But you bought a BMW, like the modifications are expensive. So for example, I had multiple exhausts on my Hondas and Acuras and they were like $400, $500, full catback. These cars, $2 grand, easy. $2 grand easy if you want an exhaust on this car. And so you have to be prepared for that. If you're going to buy this car, there's no way that you're gonna come into modifying it cheaply. It's going to be expensive. Hopefully I didn't like scare anyone out there to not buy an F30 BMW. I'm just being real with you guys. I'm trying to be realistic. When you buy your first car, it's not about having the coolest car. Work on the projects when you're young and you have that time and flexibility to afford you the things that you want in the future. When you're young, that is the time for you to eat dirt. That is the time for you to grind, work hard, and build up your projects so you can get to a point where you can afford the things that you want to be able to afford in life. Don't worry about impressing your friends. Nobody cares. Nobody cares that you're driving a Honda. It's really important to understand that if you are younger, stop trying to impress people. I think that that's an easy trap for younger kids to get into because they have all of this pressure, this social pressure, especially nowadays. Wear crappy shirts, wear Vans, wear cheap $10 Amazon sunglasses, drive a Honda, and build your projects up to the point where they can make you enough money to afford the things that you want in the future. When you are younger, 16, 17, 18, 19 years old, that is not the time to be out flaunting about how much money you have. Patience and hard work will get you to the places that you want to be in life. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching the video. Please do subscribe, comment down below, like this video, hit that bell notification just like that. This video is over, and I'm out. Peace.